Hey, this is Blake Braga from Mr. Bamba's summer terrorism class, and my final presentation is on the Boston Marathon bombing. So, just to give a brief overview of the event, the Boston Marathon bombing happened on April 15th, 2013. The people involved include Dzhokhar Sunarev and Tamerlan Sunarev, brothers who were immigrants of the United States. They left backpacks filled with pressure cooker bombs that were filled with shrapnel near the finish line and fled the scene. And when the bombs went off, they caused almost 300 deaths, or 300 injuries, and 3 deaths. The search for the brothers lasted almost a full week before they were caught, and one brother ended up dying after a police shootout, and the other was arrested on 30 different charges. So, the first thing I thought to focus on was the possible links to Al-Qaeda in history, and I just wanted to make a quick note is that while neither brothers were fully connected to any known terror organization, a lot of the attack methods and weapon creations were based on ideas that came from Al-Qaeda. So I figured this was the best place to start. So now, Al-Qaeda was first created around the Soviet-Afghan War, where many Muslim immigrants were given supplies from the son of a millionaire in Saudi Arabia. The name of this man was Osama bin Laden, and with the help of his mentor, Abu Dal al-Zam, he was able to support fighters for future wars and take al-Qaeda to a global level. But when Azam was killed in a car bomb explosion, bin Laden was made the sole leader of al-Qaeda for the next several years. And with bin Laden being the sole leader, he changed the goals of the organization to target the United States and perform a series of devastating attacks. And then these attacks ranged from attacking Black Hawk helicopters, blowing up cars and buildings, and destroying property owned by the United States in foreign countries. And then in 1997, he gave an interview with CNN stating his frustrations with the United States and the way they invade foreign lands to steal resources. And then his next major attack was the September 11 attacks in 2001, which was the final push to launch Operation Enduring Freedom, which was created to find and kill Osama bin Laden. This manhunt lasted roughly 10 years, and it ended when they found him hidden in a compound in Pakistan, where he was killed, and then he was replaced by Ayman al-Zawahiri and has been the leader as of 2020. So next is the motive of the Boston bombers, and like I said earlier, they weren't connected to any known terrorist organization, which made it a bit difficult when trying to figure out a proper motive of the brothers. But police were able to find one after the last brother was surrounded and arrested by police after they had a shootout. So Dzhokhar Sunarev was hiding in a boat after a massive shootout he and his brother had with police. And believing that he was going to die, he wrote a suicide note / manifesto on the inside of the boat explaining his motives for the bombing. And what he had written was that the bombings were a response to the actions that were taken by the United States military and what they were doing in Afghanistan and Iraq. This was extremely helpful for police as Dzhokhar was extremely uncooperative when questioned by police. So then just a quick background of the two brothers is that Dzhokhar was born in 1993. He immigrated to the United States in the mid-2000s. He attended the University of Massachusetts, Dartmouth, while at the same time consistently changing his major. And this caused him to fail many of his classes and started selling drugs to make a sort of income for himself. And then the other brother, his name was Tamerlan, who was born in 1986. He also immigrated to the United States in the mid-2000s, but instead of going to school, he decided to focus on a career in boxing, in which he eventually became a devoted Muslim, which meant he was not allowed to drink or smoke. But because he had many run-ins with the law, and he was also an immigrant, he was not able to get anywhere with his boxing career, which led him down a path of crime and other uh, devious acts, which one of them is actually the 2011 Waltham triple murder case. And this case involved Tamerlan Tazarnav in a case that was 2 years before the Boston Marathon bombings. And what this case was that it was Tamerlan and another man by the name of Ingraham Todeshiv. They both killed three men who were named Brandon Mess, Eric Wiseman, and Raphael Deacon, with their throats slashed from ear to ear. The crime scene had no money stolen and no entrances broken into, which confused police on why the three men were murdered. And it took a while, but police eventually got their answer from Todeshiv when he confessed that him and Tamerlan were the ones who killed the three men. The original plan was to rob the men, but once that failed, they ended up killing all three of them so that they would not be able to be identified by police. And the police have considered that the other Tazarnav brother was at the scene of the crime, since his DNA was found at the crime scene, and his cell phone records did put him in the area that night. And it's also worth mentioning that police have considered that if this crime was solved before 2013, the Boston Marathon bombing might have never happened in the first place. Okay, then for a timeline of the events. So, like I said earlier, Boston Marathon bombing occurred on April 15th, 2013, which is referred to as the public holiday Patriots' Day, as it happens on the third Monday of every April in the Boston area. This began around 9:30 in the morning, where runners started in the city of Hopkinton, Massachusetts, and ran 26.2 miles to the city of Boston. Then around 2:49 p.m., Tazarnav, and Tamerlan Tazarnav planted backpacks with pressure cooker bombs filled with shrapnel near the finish line. Then, going off within seconds of one another, the bombs injured almost 300 spectators and ended up killing three of them. Police quickly ended the race early. They diverted the remaining runners to a safe location and removed people from the scene of the crime in case of any more explosions. Then the next thing was that police knew that they had to catch these bombers before anything else could happen. And so it only took 2 days, but by using video recordings, photographs of the event, and security footage of the event, they were able to narrow down their suspects to the Tazarnav brothers. And knowing this, news stations and online news reports plastered their names all over social media in order to get the citizens of Massachusetts to try and find the brothers in any way possible. And since the brothers knew that their names were out in the public, they had to escape. And they first did this by killing a police officer in an attempt to steal his weapon. And now that the brothers had a weapon, they needed a vehicle to help them get out of the state of Massachusetts and travel to New York. And they did this by taking control of a car that belonged to a man named Dong Meng. Meng was held at gunpoint and he was ordered to drive to New York, but he first had to stop at a gas station so that the brothers could get gas, food, and other supplies for their journey. The brothers also mentioned that they were the ones responsible for the marathon bombings and killing the police officer earlier that night, and that they were headed to Times Square so that they could plant additional bombs and cause more harm. And while they were stopped at the gas station, Meng knew he had to take a plan of action before anything else happened. So, while one of the brothers was buying supplies in the store and the other was configuring a GPS and didn't have his hands on the loaded weapon, he bolted out of the car as fast as he could. And he made a lucky break as he was able to run to a neighboring gas station where he was able to call 911, and they were able to track the stolen car since his cell phone was still inside to find the Tazarnav brothers. And the last part of this timeline is that the police were able to track the car to the city of Watertown, Massachusetts, and once they did find the brothers, they engaged in a shootout between one another. And luckily only one cop was injured, but unfortunately one of the brothers had died because he was run over by Dazukar as he was trying to escape by car. And since that did not work out, Dazukar had to escape on foot, and he was able to hide in a boat that was in the backyard of a person that lived in the Watertown area. And the person who owned the boat, he noticed that somebody was inside of it, and when he went to check, he saw someone and called the police. And the police were able to surround the area, and once they confirmed that it was Dazukar Tazarnav, they were able to arrest him and put him into custody. And 2 years later, in 2015, Dazakar was faced with 30 different charges, and he was found guilty on all of them. And now he is currently being held in the U.S. penitentiary known as Florence High in the state of Colorado. And these are just my cited sources, both for the text and thank you very much.